Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Moonday Musings. So, I am speaking to you on Monday, the 7th of November. So, today is what's referred to as Astrological Samhain or Solar Samhain, or it's even referred to sometimes as True Samhain. So I'm really feeling that energy today, which is really nice. So I've actually set aside some time for myself this morning to engage in some online summits that I have been that I signed up to and then hadn't had time to get involved in. They only started like a couple of days ago, so I haven't missed too much. But yeah, I lit a candle and came into my office space, so this room, and was able to sit and receive and be guided through a beautiful ceremony. So yeah, I really recommend Imir Stassen's work. So she's currently running an online summit called Witches Reclaiming the Round Table. I've done quite a few of her summits and watched quite a few of her free talks, and she's absolutely just wonderful, got such beautiful energy. So yeah, have a look into that. And then I'm also participating in Samhain Fest, which I mentioned to you last week through Mystery School of the Goddess. So I'm kind of joining in as a student, but then I am running some events in there and have got some freebies in there as well. So yeah, it's been a really nice morning doing that after, I have to admit, a really rough few days. So our little family unit here have picked up or had picked up a really horrible stomach bug. So Orla had it first and then it's just moved through the house. So yeah, we've all been really quite unwell, and I'm just kind of coming out the other side of that. So yeah, it's been nice to have some time this morning that has not involved just lying on the sofa feeling sorry for myself whilst trying to still entertain and occupy a toddler who got over her sickness really quickly. So what we're going to look at today is I'll talk a little bit more about astrological Samhain. This day closes, or is believed to close, the Samhain portal, actually. And then tomorrow we've got a powerful full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus, and that is also going to close out eclipse season as well. So we've got quite an interesting week this week. So we'll talk about that. We'll, as always, talk about what is going on with Mama Moon for the rest of this week. And I've got a few other bits and bobs to share with you as well. So let's start with, and you have to forgive, I've got a bit of a funny voice. So I keep doing that annoying clearing of the throat. So astrological Samhain is a movable date. So it is when the sun is in 50 degrees Scorpio. So because it's to do with the sun, this is why it is often referred to as solar Samhain. Obviously the title Astrological Samhain makes sense, and then it's quite often referred to as True Samhain, and I think this is just because of it being at that that key point that moves each year, that people will honor that as it being the true date as opposed to a calendar date. But as we talked about last week, there are lots of different ways that you can honor Samhain. You can honor it on all of these days and just have them as a continuation of your celebrations. We've talked about continuing it through the month or even up until the winter solstice. So it really is up to you. It might be a nice opportunity though today to just have a little think about how the Samhain portal has affected you. So thinking about when we gathered last week, and we were talking, well, I was talking on the 31st of October, so Samhain Eve. And then we journeyed through that portal for the whole of the week. Here in the UK, on the weekend, it was bonfire weekend. So there's been a lot of celebration, lots of fireworks, lots of gatherings. But it's also a difficult time for pet owners, you know, myself included. We have two rescue dogs who are terrified of fireworks, particularly Bowie, the big wolfy dog. He's just beside himself, and it takes him a really long time to recover from it as well. So we've had a difficult weekend in that regard too, because obviously we've been poorly and then we've been trying to support and look after the dogs as well. But it also means that we can't, we very rarely can kind of attend any of the festivities because we need to stay in and keep them company. So it's always a bit of an interesting weekend, I think, for people, because you know, it can be a lot of fun. I just adored bonfire night when I was little. It brings back lots of lovely memories, but then, as I said, it can be quite stressful if you've got pets or animals, or just you yourself are not great with explosive sounds. So yeah, this week we're really kind of, most of the week is holding that energy of the full moon. And you may have also found, as we traveled through last week, that you were feeling the effects of the build up towards the full moon, so particularly over the weekend as well. And that might have added to, if you are in the UK, added to those celebrations and festivities, and people maybe being a little bit over the top if they've kind of got that full moon energy coursing through their veins as well. So today may well be a nice day to just land a little bit and recalibrate and kind of come back to center. Bonfire night is interesting too, and it's one of the things that Imir has been discussing actually in the summit that I was talking to you about just a few moments ago. And this is something that had been cropping up in my own mind a few years ago, because I always will dedicate a lot of time and space around Samhain and during Samhain season to really dive into the witch wound and do more reading and more healing and more kind of spiritual practices devoted to that part of history, and really identifying and looking at any of those internalized witch wounds that I still carry. I weave that into a lot of my work with my women's circles at this time of year as well. But one of the things that I had realized was, as much as I loved the memories of bonfire night when I was little, you know, sparklers and baked potatoes and going out when it's, you know, when it's getting dark, and hot chocolates and watching the firework displays. Now, as I've gotten older and I'm looking at, I'm always fascinated by the history and the folklore of everything. This idea of burning effigies of a person who you know, failed at his attempt, not just him, obviously a group of people failed at their attempt to blow up the Houses of Parliament and assassinate King James I. But, you know, in terms of the witch wound, in terms of the atrocities that took part in those in that time of the witch trials and persecution and execution of all those people, King James I was a huge protagonist in that. And you know, it's an interesting thing when you look at the celebration of that, you know, of the failed attempt, and we celebrate that, and you think what would have happened had, you know, had they been successful. Not that I am, of course, advocating for that kind of behavior, but it's an interesting thing to think about, the celebration of James I being able to kind of continue, and the kind of incredible damage and harm that he was able to cause. And it's also interesting, and we talked about this last week, the kind of placement of this celebration over the top of what would have been pre-existing fire ceremonies that would have belonged to Samhain, or all the very different names for this time of year celebrated throughout the British Isles. So it's kind of interesting as well. And as I talked about last week, you can, you know, if it's never sat well with you, Guy Fawkes night, or, you know, some of the traditions around this time of year, it's helpful to reclaim your own relationship to this time of year. So yeah, fire was always a part of Samhain, these really sacred ceremonial fires, and so we can honor that part of it and be reminded, allow the other parts of it to just remind us of that time in history, and to really honor all those people who lost their lives and who had to endure such horrendous suffering before they lost their lives. So yeah, as I said, do check out the summit, because Imia discusses it much more eloquently than I do, and she's doing a lot of healing around this time of year. A lot of her work is to do with healing the witch wound in general. I think that was one of the first summits that I attended of hers, was healing the witch wound. So yeah, do check out her work. I will try my best to remember to put a link in the notes so that you can just easily click through. So yeah, that was bonfire weekend. Mixture of feelings. I think everybody has very, very different views of this time. So yeah, hope if any of that is relevant, or gives you just a different way to to connect to that time of year. So tomorrow then is the full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus. So that is happening. I think I did write it down. Did I write it down? I did. 2 minutes past 11 in UK time. I'm pretty sure I've got that right, but do double check if I haven't. So the moon is already in the sign of Taurus today, and is going to stay in Taurus until Wednesday. So the moon is already pretty much looking full. If we look at the night sky tonight, it's going to appear very full, but it is at its fullest at 2 minutes past 11 tomorrow. And then, as always with the full moon, you can really honor it for 3 days. So the day before, the day of, and the day after. So we're going to have, for this full moon, we're going to have the sun in the sign of Scorpio, and then the moon in the sign of Taurus. And as always with our full moons help to shine light on our new moon. So all the work that we did with the new moon in Scorpio, or the new moon solar eclipse in Scorpio, we can now revisit with the full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus. Taurus and Scorpio really help each other. Taurus, I guess its shadow side can sometimes be too stuck in the material world, too attached to the pleasures of this life, to the comforts of this life. And yeah, a stubbornness, I guess, towards change. Scorpio can help Taurus by reminding them of impermanence, reminding them of the cycles of life, you know, birth, death, rebirth, transformation. And it can help to pull Taurus out of those attachments and that heaviness that they sometimes have, that kind of feeling stuck. Likewise, Taurus can help Scorpio to just come out of the underworld a little bit. You know, they can be very deep, very, very immersed in the mysteries, shadow work, you know, and sometimes quite secretive as well, and kind of lost in their own thoughts and kind of brooding. It's interesting because my husband is Scorpio sun and I'm Taurus sun, as we feel this plays out quite a lot in our relationship. So yeah, Taurus can kind of help Scorpio to just be earthed and here in the moment. The two work really, really well to balance, yeah, the ability to be in this world but not of this world, you know. So when these two work in harmony in this way, we're able to be present and we're able to enjoy all the beautiful things of this world, which is what Taurians love, but remembering and always staying present and mindful to the fact that they don't last. Nothing is permanent, nothing lasts forever, everything changes. And in that way, sorry, my computer's done an annoying update alert. so so yeah, in that way, we're able to enjoy things more in the knowledge that yeah, nothing lasts. Eclipses will often reveal to us what is changing, what is ending, and what is beginning. So, what I would pay really close attention to tomorrow and reflect upon since the new moon solar eclipse in Scorpio is has there been a sense of things shifting? Have you noticed things ending, closing down, just not feeling right anymore? You know, I've noticed it with a couple of things for me where I'm just like, that is just not working anymore, and I keep going ahead and going ahead and it doesn't feel right, and I'm holding on because I'm worried about what it might look like if it changes, or what's going to happen if I drop that particular thing. So it shows up for me, it shows up a lot of fears as well, and I think that we can really dig into that for ourselves too. It's like, how much are we resisting change because we want to hold on to that sense of safety and security. But you know, Samhain season, Scorpio season, eclipse season, it's gonna really push us to step through, you know, to let go and be brave enough to let go without always knowing what the next step is. We don't cope very well with liminal space in general, so it can be very, very difficult to end something without the next thing being immediately lined up. We're always taught to do that, aren't we, now in modern times? You know, you've got to have the next, what's your 5-year plan, what's your 10-year plan, what's the next thing? You know, it was interesting, I walked through the village on Tuesday last week. Yeah, Tuesday morning last week, and all the Halloween decorations that had been in the shop windows were just gone, and it was Christmas. You know, and I think it's like, that was your chance, that's your time to honor that, and now we're on to the next thing. And I have no issue at all with early Christmas windows. I text my mom, was like, Christmas windows are up, because I love it and I find it, you know, I'm very excited about midwinter. But there is that rush, isn't it, onto the next thing, onto the next thing. And that kind of makes sense in terms of Halloween, because it's not seen as a spiritual event and it is just associated with the 31st of October. But what I think we need to be careful with our spiritual practices, that we're not doing that with Samhain, where we're like, that's it, Samhain's over, and let's go on to the next thing. Try and just give yourself space, you know, honor today as astrological Samhain. Give yourself time to think about all this stuff and allow the eclipses to really help you to, yeah, process the year, help you to understand where you're at now and what you want, what your desires are. Scorpio and Taurus are really good with that too. You know, it's very much about our our needs, our emotional needs, our physical needs. So Scorpio and Taurus can really help us to, Scorpio can help us to connect with our sacral chakra, and Taurus can help us with kind of like the heart and the throat chakras. So really dropping into what we need, what our heart needs, and then being able to express our truth, our honesty, and be creatively free as well. I chose this a card for this week, and it's sort of perfect really for eclipse season and Samhain season. So I'm using the Archetypes deck again, that we used from last week. So the card that I drew us for this week is the Destroyer. But look at this amazing wolf face in the cosmos, just wonderful. So it says here, the Destroyer, the final of the three archetypes in the trio of existence, has necessary yet painful work to do in the world. Culturally, we have an aversion to endings, and we hang on to permanence as a signifier of success. Yet, the Destroyer pulls the rug out from underneath relationships, jobs, homes, and all forms of security. It's the part of us that wants things to end. Its painful orientation is to uncover our true purpose. The Destroyer does not let us linger long in comforts, as it knows not much happens in that realm. With its piercing eyes, it seeks out stagnancy from a distance, and the rest becomes history. In the old myths, this is the moment when heads begin to roll, the ground opens up, and castles crumble. Hold on for the ride. The Destroyer has arrived. So I really did pick that randomly because I thought it's going to look like I've just deliberately chosen this card, but I was so moved by this card for this full moon tomorrow, but also what we've just been speaking about in terms of Samhain season and Scorpio season. And if you want to really see that relationship between Scorpio and Taurus, it's here where it says, the Destroyer does not let us linger long in comforts, as it knows not much happens in that realm. So an interesting question to ask yourself for this full moon eclipse is, have you gotten too bedded in to your comfort zone? And do you feel that there is a hand, being extended to you at the moment that is trying to pull you out of that? And how are you reacting to that? Is there a sense of resistance? Are you just not listening to your gut, to your intuition? And what would it feel like to start listening, or to take that hand, take Hecate's hand and allow her to guide you down through the underworld, to show you how much more there is when we step out of that comfort zone, and that is a Taurus thing. And I can say that, being a Taurus sun, I like things the way I like things. And the times where I can look back on my life where I've been pushed out of that comfort zone, it has been really transformational, and I've always ended up somewhere so much better. Not always easily, I'm not saying that some of these situations weren't painful, that there's not grief in those moments, but there's often been a sense on the other side of like, yeah, this was right for me. I've grown from that experience. I'm now where I need to be. I'm now who I'm meant to be. So pay attention to that this week. Is the Destroyer showing up for you at the moment, and how are you reacting to that? How are you leaning into that experience? So a couple of other things. So let's go through. I've got some journaling things to share with you, but let's go through the rest of the week for the moon. So obviously tomorrow, full moon. It's pretty much going to feel like the full moon on Wednesday as well, and it's the moon is staying in the sign of Taurus. Thursday and Friday, we're going to be more in that waning gibbous phase and in the sign of Gemini. So this might be a nice few days to do some free writing. So Gemini is a very kind of fast-paced thinking. You know, Gemini is very creative. But it's very mind. My words aren't coming out very quickly today. Sorry, the opposite of Gemini. But yeah, it's very kind of quick thoughts, innovative, creative. But sometimes when we've got like a heightened lunar energy in the sign of Gemini, we can be too much in our thoughts. So it can be helpful on those days after a full moon to just get your feelings down on paper. So as I said, I would recommend doing some free writing, some of the prompts that we've talked about today, reflecting on your new moon in Scorpio intentions, how this has all been going, and just kind of write and get it out. And then the weekend is going to be, the moon is going to be in Cancer. So we're going to be dropping from the head, the thoughts of Gemini, and then moving into the realms of our emotions. And this is where we might start to begin to really feel the effects of the eclipse and the full moon. So we might feel quite emotional over that weekend. We might feel quite vulnerable. So just allow some spaciousness around the weekend to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. Cancer is that sign that invites us to really care and nurture ourselves as well. And then next week, we'll talk more about the waning moon and preparing for the dark moon. Okay. So just a reminder with the full moon that it is a time really to embody your new moon intentions. So I've said this before, but I'll always repeat myself for anybody that's new to listening to me or watching me. I don't honor the practice of a full moon being a time for letting go and a time for release, because I feel like we're really missing a key point of the cycle if we do that. If we look at the seasons, the full moon is associated with summertime. It's the peak of the cycle, but it's not the end of the cycle. So think of the energy of summertime, you know, what we're doing. It's that enjoyment. The days are long. We've got so much more access to light. So we do more, we're more social, we're more creative, we've got more energy. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to be doing a lot of cleansing and releasing practices that are way more suited to the waning moon and the dark moon when we're getting into lunar autumn and lunar winter. So don't let yourself miss the opportunity to actually enjoy a part of the cycle. It's coming back to that thing again where we're rushing on to the next thing and on to the next thing. And this shows up sometimes in our relationship to the lunar cycle. So we just honor the new moon and the full moon, and we don't do anything else. And we're missing half of the moon cycle. Yeah. So this is just my approach. So of course, if it doesn't resonate with you, just work out what feels best for you. But for me, the full moon is the time to check back in with my new moon intentions, but actually embody them. So, for example, with the new moon in Scorpio, if your intention was to pursue your desires and put passions more, then I would be looking at making some space on and around the full moon to pursue a passion, So embody the intention, enjoy, celebrate, do something fun on the full moon with all that excess energy, and then save your releasing practices for when the sky is darkening, when the moon is retreating. I'm sorry, my daughter's just banged on the door, just giving me a real fright. So next thing I wanted to share with you, and I'm sorry about the banging in the background. She is meant to be with her dad, but she's been quite disruptive. So the next thing that I wanted to show you was my pages for November for the new month. So as I've talked to you about before, one of the things that I really like to do at the start of a new month is a journal spread that goes in my planner at the front of the month before my diary, where I kind of write in plans and commitments and things like this. So here is my spread for November. So those of you listening on the podcast, I will just describe this as best as I can, and then just know that I will post an image on Instagram. But also you can just hop over to YouTube and have a quick look as well. So there is a fair bit on here actually. So beautiful illustration of Scorpio to signify that it is Scorpio season for most of this month. And then there's quite a lot of stuff based around getting cozy and hygge, so fluffy slippers, fluffy blankets, chai lattes. And then I've got the moon phases for the rest of the month, so the key things that are coming up. And then there's a few bits, so reminders of things to do in the garden, so starting to put seed out for the birds, planting spring bulbs, and getting more winter flowers for the garden. On the other side, there's just a little bit more of a collage to do with slowing down, honouring November as Slowvember. So reminding myself to meditate and to rest, and view rest as a sacred practice as well. I've got a sticker. These are actually my stickers, so my illustrations, the boots and the chai latte. So I've still got some of these. It's on my list to put them back up in my Etsy shop. So I've got a Samhain set of stickers and an autumn set of stickers. I had a lot of fun doing the illustrations for these, and they came out really nicely as stickers. So those will be up in my shop soon if you're interested. What else have we got in here? So oh yes, so this is the other thing. So just a reminder to begin making preparations for midwinter and for Christmas. So to start making things. That is my big goal this year, to try and start making stuff in November and not leave it to December, because time always runs out and then it ends up being really stressful and actually not fun at all. So yeah, if you have time and you like journaling and collage and things, then it might be a nice practice for you to do, and something you could do actually on the full moon is to just have a little think about what you want from November, how you want to greet this month, and just as I've done, putting key dates down, putting images down that can help you connect to those intentions and feelings, and then just having fun with it as well. So I've got a couple of things that I wanted to read to you about the month of November, and this is actually from a journal that I had last year. So this is from the book, this quote is from the book Merry Midwinter, which I'll probably be quoting a lot over the next few weeks. And the book is by Gillian Monks. For this time of year is when we first turn away from the activity of the light, sunny growing cycle of the spring and summer months. Everything in the natural world that grows or gives birth has come to fruition and been harvested, and now the time for wilting, fading, and dying back into the earth begins in earnest, as the life force descends into darkness and temporary death. And then I've got another little quote here that's just: the changes that take place in winter are a kind of alchemy. So this was my journal from last year for November. So that's the other thing that I really like to do too, as well as images, is to pull out quotes from books that I'm reading, and I'll often really delve into a lot of seasonal books at this time of year. Okay, so I think that is everything for today. I don't feel like I have given you my best podcast today. I feel a bit off my game and a little bit distracted by background noises. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope that it's going to help you to greet this week in a really gentle and hopefully positive and inspired way. I am hoping that I'll be back to my normal self next week, next Monday. Couple of things then just to remind you of. As I said, please join us for Samhain Fest. It's free. I've also decided to run my Women's Circle Facilitator training again. I've been taking a little break. I did quite a few of these back to back and absolutely love them, but they take a lot of energy. I'm holding space a lot for 3 months at a time. And I sort of got a few fairly big batches of women through their graduation. And it's been, I have to say, it's been really heartwarming to see them setting up their own circles and all the different ways that they have done that and moved into kind of retreats and collaborations with other people. So I love doing this work, but I gave myself a little break just while I was navigating motherhood. But I was starting to get this inkling of, oh, I feel like I'd like to do another round. And then I've actually had quite a lot of requests from people who don't want to do it in the self-study format and want to do it as an interactive course. So I'll be getting the kind of dates and all the information out fairly soon, because I'm hoping to start this kind of mid to late January. Yeah, it goes for it's about 3 months, and it's all online, but it's interactive. So there's a lot of coursework to go through. Although I hate the word coursework, but you know what I mean. There's lots of lessons to go through. The first part of the training really is getting to know yourself, and we do a lot of astrology. We really dig in to cyclical living. We talk a lot about the working with the moon, working with the wheel of the year, working with your own cycles, and then we move on into really how to craft your own themes for circles. I've had a lot of people reach out and say that they want to start, or they are already running circles, but they find it quite difficult to create a theme. So we do, most of the training is on that actually. So how you want to do that. Do you want to do themes based on goddesses, archetypes, seasons, the moon, the astrological archetypes, storytelling? So we go into a lot of detail with that. And then the last part of the training, most important part of the training, is how to hold space. So the other reason that I've been kind of reignited to offer this training once again is I have kind of, as I've been moving through the year and speaking to different people, just heard a few things about people kind of stepping into spaces that they thought were safe and held safely, and they just haven't been. And it's not a criticism of the people facilitating, but it's just sometimes if we don't have this training and we don't understand that there are really important things to do with holding space, that it can leave people with this feeling of not wanting to go back to something like that, or actually feeling quite triggered, or as I said, feeling quite unsafe. So we do a lot on that, and boundaries and ethics and all of that stuff. So if it sounds interesting to you, do reach out and I can put you on my email list for specifically for circle leader training. But as I said, I will be getting stuff ready to advertise, so there will be more information available soon. I keep the costs as accessible as I can. I know that things are hard at the moment, and I really want people to be able to access this training. So it is affordable, and payment plans are available as well. So more on that to come. And yeah, I'm just wishing you a really beautiful eclipse. Don't be too worried about it being an eclipse. Just remember that there's lots of blessings, there's lots of things that we can learn, and to just rest when you need to, cry if you need to, take some time out if you need to. Be gentle with yourself and the people around you. So remember that all the energies that are working through us and that are feeling intense and making us perhaps a little bit out of sorts are moving through everyone else as well. So just hold space for each other, be kind to each other. I sound like Jerry Springer. All right, so I will see you next week. Take it easy. If you're in the UK, stay warm and dry because it just seems to be raining all the time at the moment. And yeah, happy solar Samhain, happy eclipse, and I'll see you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.